and my God will meet all your needs according to the riches of his glory in Christ Jesus. Okay, we just talked about coming to the end of yourself. When we come to the end of yourself, who's been worried about their health in a way that they came to the end of themselves, or worried about somebody else's health? They came to the end, so they didn't know what to do. They had no other solution. And they came, and what does this verse say when you don't know what to do next, whether it's health or something else that you just think is going to ruin your life? How does this verse, which is a relationship crisis, a health crisis, an economic crisis, a business crisis, how does this verse help you? If we know he's going to do it in the most difficult scenario, and we can switch to gratitude and joy, you can't be anxious and grateful at the same time. You can't be going, he's meeting all my needs. I'm in great shape. If he's met every single thing, everything, according to what?
His riches.
His riches. How rich is he, Tom?
Rich.
Really rich. Why is this our thematic verse for Strategy Month? How does this help inform a strategy that you're planning that might be proactive? You're not the end of yourself, but you're planning a strategy to move forward. Yeah, I'm not much good. I'm not much good as a parent or a business leader or anything if I'm all worried about the thing I'm missing. But when I can move in and know that every need is met, that according to his riches of his glory in Christ Jesus, when I know those things, Brian, all the more reason I want to be aligned. Because we need to be an ad agency with a global campaign called, we're going to be future focused. We got all our clients future focused. And really, but future, keep going. You got to keep going in the future sometimes. How's it going to work out if these calls don't work today? How's it going to work out if this 3-year strategy doesn't work out? How's it going to work out in 1 billion years? Oh, it's going to work out great. More than we can think or imagine. We can't see it all. Just like you can't, your 4-year-old can't quite see where you're leading them. Your college student can't quite see where they're going. 57-year-olds can't quite see where they're going. Praise the Lord that he's taking us somewhere. Okay. Something's got to change. We're not going to change something till we know. That can happen reactively when we're at the end of ourselves. But something's got to change. Who's got something right now they know something's got to change in their life? You don't have to raise your hand, and you don't have to shout it out. But you can give me a nod. Like I know I got to change something. I got 3 or 4. Something's got to change. And so, the Wall Street Journal has said this is Change Month, Walker. Did you know that? They declared it Change Month. It's absurd. So it's all over. It's all over TikTok. You got to change. But companies, he said 2 things. People have figured out their resolutions and goals and used to start, figure that out over the holidays and set them. But right now you're kind of going, I kind of see everything going on. I think this is the time. And whose numbers are sort of baked for the year, you can kind of see. You've made a big change recently, but in the 10 months of a year of forecast, you kind of know where you are. You kind of know the things that can cook by the end of the year and the things that can't. And so I know if I'm 30% up or 20% down, or if I achieved what I thought was good, if we were doing the right things in our ministry, in our work, we can see it. And this is a good time to kind of evaluate before we get to the holidays. And in November, Luke's a great time to test some stuff, to pilot some things. So I can see I want to change these things. Now I'm going to pilot these things. So it's a good month to do it, okay? What needs to change at your organization? Who's got something? Like in your organization, this thing needs to change. Great. If our relationships were tighter, how much further could we go? Oh, great. What a great 60 days to practice that, right? What a great to put a pilot and change that. And you have to say, but who's sort of got something? Give me a nod. At your organization, you want to change? We're going to do a couple of quick examples. We spent more time in the front, which is great. But for Nick Saban and Alabama, something had to change when what? He got to something that had to change. Here's what he said. I mean, his age, more and more change, definitely frustrated by it. But he said this. And I know on some good sources he'd said this to some high recruits already. But he said he couldn't, in football, right, Reed? Every year, does Alabama get rated of assistant coaches? People leave. And every year there's a coach or two not performing. So every year he's got to bring in probably on average 3 or 4 coaches. And it's different than most schools. He said he no longer could look them in the eye and said he would still be here in 3 or 4 years. So it was really outward focused to them. I can't look you in the eye and say, come on, join us at Alabama. You going to be here, coach? Because in coaching, when the head coach leaves, everything disperses, right? Very rarely does somebody get to stay around. So he said, I couldn't look him in the eye and say they'd still be here. So that's why I knew I had to go. If I'm thinking I might stay 1 or 2 years, I can't look the guy in the eye and say, I got to go. Something's got to change. So he changed and he left. Here's what Sarkisian said. I don't know what you guys do, but I've never seen him smile so much. He's saying of the ESPN crew. Saban revealed that Sarkisian isn't the only one of his former assistants who is noticing a different side of him. These guys text me and say, who is this guy? You're smiling all the time. You seem pretty happy with the change. Y'all seen that? I was looking for a picture of him smiling to put up here for y'all. I couldn't find one. And but I found something. I found something, not really a good one that wasn't old or some mugshot. But then I saw this thing about ESPN and their changes they made when they brought him on. But anybody kind of know what ESPN did over the past 6 months before they brought him on? The big changes they made? Let me up to speed on that. They let go of a lot of people. They let go of the middle row of announcers and commentators. They kept the best and let go of the middle row. And then they brought in Saban and McAfee's that his name? Yeah. And they'd like gifts on that, the ones the goofball ones. And what happened? Something had to change. And we're going to cover this a little deeper in a minute. The economics of college football weren't working. And they had to change it. And, we're going to talk a minute how the economics or the revenue and profit is the blood of the organization. I mean, you need it, but you don't need too much of it. But if it's off, if the thing isn't working, you have to realign it, yes? That's true in ministry. That's true in your businesses. You got to realign. The project is over expensed, Tom. And the revenue is not, the change orders aren't coming like you thought. You've got to right size the team, right? So they did that, and they brought in higher talent, more expensive talent. Two of those guys probably in expense cost what 4 or 5 of the others did, and it worked. That's the strategy they pulled. We're going to go with more heavyweights, less middle, and see what happens. And it worked. Okay. What needs to change? That's how change happens. Something had to change. You can't have a division that's just not working, period. But look at what ESPN and Saban did. They were saying, what do people want? What do people need? And we got to make sure we have the best. Saban was saying, I can't look people in the eye and be honest. People need. That was focused on somebody else. Maybe focused on his own integrity and reputation. But he said he has a pretty good reputation. He really is saying, I just can't call Reed to Alabama and say I'm going to be here. So when he thinks of a strategy and how he's going to change, it is others focused. And even ESPN and good products are saying, even schools say, what are we providing that people will want? So the strategy really starts when what strength or advantage do we need to give to the world? Do we need to increase our strength and advantage? And that's what ESPN did. And Saban just said, what am I doing for others? So we're going to see this throughout. Who's heard of Siete Foods? Who has this in their house? Tell me about it for a minute. That's exactly right. Who's tasted something paleo that's like made and it's like, that's ridiculous. Whatever they do for sugar is ridiculous. But who's had these chips? They're delicious. They're really great. So the grain-wise of this, maybe when they add the extra salt as the paleo, it's fine, where the sugar's not. Maybe that's the part of it. But great food. So Veronica Garza at Siete Foods, she had something that had to change in a really, really big way. And she developed a lupus. And she learned about a paleo diet. In the meantime, their family strengths, they had, just like some of you may know Italian families better, some of you may know Hispanics family better, but in Crazy Rich Asians, you see the grandmother's really in charge of everything, right? You know that movie? You seen that movie, Cam? She's really the matriarch of the whole thing. in this case, her family, the grandmother, was constantly hosting Food Fest. and they made tortillas fresh and then would fill in all the food and the grilled food together, and they did that. It's a ritual they did all the time. And she got to where she had lupus, and then she just kind of made these almond flour tortillas and put them on the table, and everybody loved them. But it was based on a heritage and a strength that they all knew what good food was, and they didn't want any bad food. And then simultaneously, they were into CrossFit and started their own gym. So the whole family's running the gym together and then having feasts together, and people are coming over, and actually then they work out and start to eat paleo food together, and then they have a feast. So they work out and then paleo food. They're developing community and strength. They're developing relationships like crazy. A family business. You know anything about family businesses? A little bit. They're putting all this together. And then the brother, they all went to UT Austin, by the way, and he was in business school, and the youngest. But she's teaching at the local college while they're also running the CrossFit gym, and they're also having these feasts. And she says this: I didn't love the job I had at the time, and I really wanted a way out of it. If I could sell enough tortillas just to allow me to do that and make up for the salary that I'd be losing teaching, which wasn't much, by the way, it wouldn't have been that hard. If I can just sell enough tortillas to make up for this thing. She was selling them for $12 a pack, ironically, at a store called Wheatsville in their hometown. You paleo gluten people get what I'm saying. So, and they were buying them like crazy, and they had this great strategy. They just put them on the owner's desk, and he started eating them, and I got to have these. And so could we scale this thing? They're buying them like crazy at Wheatsville. Could we scale this thing? And that's enough for me. I wasn't thinking it could be big. And so they created a company, and they wanted to become the leading Better For You Mexican food brand. Their values are humility, diversity, and love people always. Where do you see these values? Yeah, Jesus, the most humble person that ever walked, most powerful and most humble person to ever walk the earth. Jesus, the king of diversity, bringing everybody in, teaching everybody to what comes together. And he boils the whole law down to this. We thought it was two things, but he can boil it down to one thing: love people always. They put that right in there. And then they operate with family first, family second, and business third attitude. So they're check, check, check. Is the family good? 7 of them are in it. That's where you get Siete. 7 of them are working on it together. Is family good? Oh, no. Is the family good? Are we good here? Oh, now. How's the business operate? And I wonder, I couldn't find anything about their faith. If you do, free biscuit next week. But I do see it aligned. And in the podcast I'm going to forward you after this, because you need to listen to this, because we're going to follow the strategies they took to create your own strategies in 2 weeks. Okay? But they talk about blessings, and it's just so rich on their focus on others. And they look at their goal is to positively impact underserved communities through education, entrepreneurship, and wellness. And they know this. They live in a very poor community, but they're starting things, and the whole family somehow got to UT Austin and related that way. So they've been granted great privileges, and they get to do this. This is them. That's the father and mother, but Veronica's the one on the right, and the CEO of the company is one on the far right. Mike, the youngest, became the CEO of the whole thing and convinced her to do it. And one of the other things he finally said to her, as they were doing it better and bigger, and even venture capital or private equity came around to help them and assist them, because their original name was We Be Nutty, and that wasn't so good. Siete is a little better, isn't it? Can you remember that, can't you, Tom? But he's the one who said we could do this, and he finally said to her, something's got to change question. He goes, how are you going to be when you've created these great tortillas, and somebody else, because if it's a great idea, it's going to work, and somebody else takes them to the world, and you buy somebody else's in the store? And she goes, I'm going to want to be the one to do that. So that, along with the fact that her current job wasn't working, she was totally into fitness, she was totally into whole and wellness, and she did it. And so then they did get Whole Foods business. They tried the same strategy. Let's just go to the buyer and put this stuff on the desk in Austin. And it worked so good for Whole Foods. Like, it's kind of a nappy bag, and it says We Be Nutty, and it wasn't working so good. But after a while, somebody who was making a movie or making a video for Whole Foods about how great they are, I guess, their history, came through and was in Wheatsville and had these tortillas and emailed the head of Whole Foods he was working for, the CEO, and said, you got to try these, y'all got to have these. And sure enough, 7 forwarded emails later, 4 days later, he gets a chance to meet with the buyers, and they sold to Whole Foods, and now they're in Costco, and they're everywhere, right? And so it exploded them. And not without big errors, not without big decisions of something's got to change. The first 40,000 in shipment they sent to Whole Foods, who's made mistakes in their business? Yeah. The first 40,000 they sent to Whole Foods, molded. You know why? They learned something. Did you know that if you store whole tortillas not made from grain with vegetables in a cooling area, that vegetables have mold spores like crazy, all of them. And so those mold spores just get out through the plastic and come right in. Can't store them that way. They learned that. And then but that was the end of their business. What we're going to do, this thing's here. And in the middle of the night, they had to get like 30 people together for 3 days to make $40,000 in tortillas to meet their first order. And then the rest really is history. They took their strength and advantages, their love of food, their understanding of what good food is, their love of fitness, the need for lupus. If I have this, who's solved something in their life and wants to see it in other people's lives? All the time. So if this is going to save me, this is going to make me feel better. I'm finally feeling good on this paleo diet, and there are not enough paleo good foods for sure. I've tasted too many. And so I want to have more people have these things. And we're going to do this as a family. It's meeting everybody's needs. Unbelievable. And it worked. Well, about 10 days ago, they announced a sale to PepsiCo for $1.2 billion. So, yeah, that was a skeptical, now it is about the money. I don't know. I went and read the press releases afterwards, after the challenge in the Wednesday morning group. But if their goal is to see people eat healthily more and to make it broader and to take this even further for the world, PepsiCo has distribution to do that. And they say this, though: no Hispanic American company has ever sold for very much. No one's, so they want to inspire entrepreneurs, and it sounds like they'd also take their resources and they're going to help a lot more entrepreneurs given what they've got. So now are we a better family to help others? And does this thing need to now, is it really too big for us? Does it need to operate? They don't say it's too big for them, but they say, can it keep growing, and then we can do something else with some other people? Pretty cool. Okay, what needs to change? We're going to look at the strategy of how they did it, how they leverage each individual strength next time. What needs to change in your organization? Who's got something? How does this verse, Charlie, you read it.
I, the Lord, do not change.
How does the fact that God doesn't change inform how we change? Yeah. We don't have a problem thinking about changes. We have a problem making changes. Most people do. But I'm going to look at him. He's never changing, and he is calling every person to change. The God that does not change is calling us to change all the time, to completely continue to transform. As 2 Corinthians 3:18, as we gaze at his Son, the Holy Spirit is looking over us, as we gaze at his Son, and we're transformed more and more to his image. So he's looking at it. He's the God who invites us in and doesn't leave anybody the same, because he's the rock. He does not change. And so it is. Joel started this in our whole lesson. I got to look to him. I got to look to see what's right. And then I got to align with that, and then I can know what to change. He does not change. How about this verse, Leo?
Every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows.
How does this inform how we might change? Everything you have is from him. Every power to do the thing that you need to do is through him. The meeting, who's got a meeting they're not excited about today? It's from him. Who's got something they're really excited about in their life? They can't wait till this thing happens. It's from him. I wonder what that is. From him. The power to handle the meeting that's difficult today is through Him. You can only do it through Him. If you're going to do it aligned, like Joel's talking about, it's through Him. The thing you don't want to do, the thing you're really excited about, power to do it well, through Him. And the reason to do it, you know where I'm headed? This has been a memory verse. The reason to move into this thing we don't like today is for Him. The reason to change is for Him. The reason to do this thing I'm super excited about is for Him, so I got to make sure I'm glorifying Him when I do it. All things are from Him, all things are through Him, all things are for Him. He's provided everything we need, every strength and advantage we have. We're moving toward the needs of the world because we're covered. We're covered. So we can then deploy everything. That's what you're saying about my mask is covered. When I know I'm okay, I can start to care about other people. When I'm worried about myself, I better get back. I better get back to knowing He loves me perfectly. He's got me. He's meeting all my needs. I'm heading the right direction. As a Sunday school teacher, I always had that Randy Pope graph of the fact that it's given, and it's first mercy and love, because if I'm ever looking at works, if I'm ever looking at what I've got to do, and I'm not sure that I'm loved by Jesus and He's paid for everything, it is just performance works. But if I'm doing it out of an overflow that He's provided everything and I've got everything and then I'm joining Him on mission, then my acts are glorifying to the Lord. If I'm doing it to earn it, it's not. So I got to know that I'm covered, and I got to know it's all for Him. Can your purpose, big question, can your purpose, vision, and mission be the same as Jesus? What do we say?
Yes.
Yes? Give me some pushback on that. Now the other groups had some pushback, so we'll learn better when somebody pushes back a little bit. Yeah, and we're just getting all perfect and cleaned up and ready for Him? Is that what we're here to do? What's the mission? What's His mission? Because we have said that a couple times, like I'm getting better. Yeah, I'm getting better and better all the time. He's cleaning me. I'll never get there. If I'm focused on, we learned in 1 Timothy, the righteous are not under the law. A much bigger plan to join Him on mission, to have the same mission, to have the same vision, to move toward Him. No, we won't do it perfectly. Exactly right. Never. And we stop all the time because we can't do it perfectly. But this is not just, can we do it? It's a command. Love others as I've loved you. He came to reconcile all things to Himself so we'd have perfect union with the Father in heaven and live forever. That's the math of it, forever. And then He makes us reconcilers with Him. Come and join me. If you know you're reconciled, let's reconcile some things. Let's be more relational at work, because this is all about relational. The thing we're planning big, let's make sure it's for His glory, because it's all about reconciling for Him forever. Joining the same mission. Love others. Be a witness. Be salt and light. Whichever, Jesus said His mission so many different ways. Great leaders say it different ways. I came that you might have peace. God so loved the world, He sent His only Son, that whoever believes in Him shall have eternal life. So we got all these ways. I came to preach good news to the poor, to reconcile all people to Him. He's doing it. That's what He calls us to do. He says it this way.
Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Pray that what you're working on today is aligned with what's going to happen in heaven. That's some strategy alignment right there. That what you're working on today will bring about the kingdom. What you're working on today, that's one thing when I'm off with somebody or off with a strategy, I say, how's it going to be in heaven? I'm not going to be mad at Michael anymore in heaven. So I might want to move to reconcile that relationship today. I'm not going to be worried about Nichols anymore in heaven. So I might want to move to not worry about him today. This thing is, how's it going to be there, and how can I move this thing toward that? And I do that when I know that I'm taking what I've been given. Who's been given gifts? And I totally believe that we're all 100% equal in the gifts that we've been given. That all men are created equal. All men, because all men and women are made in the image of God, and they're all given gifts to do something. And so they go, well, I'm not as gifted as Brian. Well, it's not true. You may not have found yours, or you may not be applying it, but it's not a gift if I hadn't used it to serve the world. It's got this great little thing here. I'm just keep it to myself. No, it's a gift when we receive it. That's what that verse is talking about in James. When we receive it, it all comes down from God. It's all for His. He doesn't change. Now take your gifts and use them for the world. And that's what Siete Foods did. I don't know exactly their faith. Well, I think we'll find out. But they deployed what they had to the good of the world. Take it and move it toward them. Okay, what needs to change? I'm asking this question one more time. And then, what's the highest priority of your business? And then why do you think we talk about these things so much? It sustains it. Good. I think it's a great word. I wish we stopped at sustained. Because whose organization has enough nickels is not underwater. And if your product line's underwater, you got to fix even that product line. But is it sustain it, or do we go past sustain? Here's the truth. Money, I don't know if we said this a little last week, but I'll just say it again. Money is like blood. It needs to be there to run the organization. But who's lately thought about, I have a friend who's thinking deeply about his blood and praying deeply for his blood, because his blood isn't healthy right now. And it's got to be fixed. And we're praying for it like crazy. And so if your blood's off, we got to focus on it. It's okay to pray like crazy for somebody's blood to be better, for the cancer to get out of there. But you guys all okay on your blood? Who's thought about having more lately? Like, I just got to have a couple more pints. Yeah. What would happen if we put a couple more pints in you today? Yeah, you get really sick. And so money for business is like blood. When we over-focus on revenue, net income, and stock value, when somebody's got enough and we focus on these, why do you think we focus on them? One thing, it's easy. It's easy. It's accountable, it's fungible, it's storable, we know where it is, we know exactly what it is easy. What else? It's an idol. Everybody's doing it. We did say the last week about 80% of businesses are totally focused here. Whether they're the largest business or the smallest business. And maybe that's really 87.3 and maybe that's really 78. But it's majority, it's super majority. Focused here. It's easy, it's an idol, everybody's doing it. And here's what God says about idols. I'm just going to read this. Not to us, but to your name be the glory. That's what we started with. Your glory. It's all about your glory because of your love and faithfulness. Why do the nations say, where is their God? Our God is in heaven. He does whatever He pleases. But their idols are silver and gold. They have mouths, but they cannot speak. Eyes, but they cannot see. They have ears, but they cannot hear. Noses, but they cannot smell. They have hands, but they cannot feel. Feet, but they cannot walk. Nor can they utter a sound with their throats. Those who make them will be like them, and so will all who trust in them. And let's just focus on nickels only. Are nickels an idol? Yes. Okay. And you do something countercultural with your nickels, do people think you're crazy? Where's your God? What kind of God would make you operate like that? And then isn't also the opposite true? That people in your business are going, do you really operate that different than the world? Are we glorifying a God in our business that's different? Or does it seem similar? And then this bottom verse, Paul loves this. He goes to Athens, which is a city of gods and nickels, and he says, man, I see very religious, all these temples everywhere. I've stood at that spot where he is, by the way, and you see all these temples everywhere. He goes, man, you got a lot of gods. I see that. Your ancestors made these. That's really cool. Let me tell you about the God who made you. Let me tell you about the God who made your ancestor. Let me tell you about all these things. And so here's the truth of this. If we are following like the world in idols, we become like them. And not just like the world, but the thing we're trusting in. We become like money. The reason you make a decision in your strategy, so everybody said they have something to change. So the reason you make the decision to change is what you're going to end up serving. You can get all the way through. You can look at everything you've done in your life, and the change you made, the thing you decide to serve, is the reason you're still serving it. The reason you made the decision is the thing you serve. Every time. So what about this metric? Siete Foods, Apple. I mean, I'm saying as far as I know, I don't know their faith. But focus on how well are we serving customers? Are people loving our chips? What's the customer satisfaction ratio? Oh, they're loving. We keep getting more. Loyal customers. Do loyal customers tell other customers? They do. Hey, it's going great at this school. It's going great. Hiring practice. We at least get, if people enjoy their jobs, maybe we can get more people in here. So that works for employees. The best organizations bring other employees on. The best organizations, the mouthpiece of the organization is the customers doing it. So what needs to change to move to that? And then we said, this is what we're called to. This is the will of God, that what we do for people is flourishing. That what we do for people is knowing Jesus. And then they witness. So the same thing, you see the pattern? The same as new customers, loyal customers, and net promoter, morphing that to having people, do I know this is flourishing? Do I know this is knowing Jesus? Do I know this is witnessing? I have one question, I'm probably going to go 2 minutes over. Let me ask this question, okay? Boy, I went really fast. Sorry. Which is harder, to change from net income, revenue, and stock value to new customers, satisfied customers, and customers who tell others, or this third one, flourishing on earth, knowing Jesus, witnessing Jesus? Which is harder? Which leap is harder? Net income to customer metrics, or customer metrics to kingdom metrics? Let's say it that way. Which is harder? I think if we can stop focusing on intake and we can focus on what we're doing for people. Siete, I don't know their faith. I have a suspicion, but I don't know it. Focus on how well they're delivering their product for customers. Let's pull it all back. Let's empty our bank account and let's get it right for this customer. Let the customer's Whole Foods. Maybe it will pay off. So let's get that done. And then then there'll be the great platform for our product, and more people will adopt it. And then they'll become loyal. And they're loyal like crazy. The Wednesday morning, the Wednesday afternoon lunch, the whole group they wouldn't stop talking about them. Loyal customers who tell others. They say that's the most important. Actually, most people will say that's the most important stat in business. Who are your people telling about? Are they a promoter of your business? That's why if they ask just one question when you hang up with Delta, they ask that question. Okay. And if I become obsessive about serving customers, and that's what I really care about, and I'm a Christian, I get to the deeper need, especially those of you who are one-on-one businesses. Most of you are. You're one-on-one business. I got to meet with this guy about land. I got to meet with this guy about real estate. I got to meet with this guy about his financial portfolio. So is this giving him peace? Am I giving him the right product? I got to meet his needs. I got to meet the reason he came to me. But am I meeting the reason he came to me? And now is that a platform for these employees to tell them what really is there? We got to have more in the pipeline, but can I really keep going? Can I really help them flourish? And one person said, by far this one, because this is church stuff, flourishing and knowing Jesus and witnessing Jesus. But those customer metrics are the hardest because that's business. So they actually said, one was super easy to focus on that. Easy, countable, fungible. 3 is actually easier because that's what we do at church all the time. But 2 is really hard to make sure I'm really meeting somebody's needs. Here's what we're saying. When we do that, we're separating it. If the Christian can't think about satisfying somebody's needs and not think about this, I'm going to make sure the tortilla is great for you. But since it's a one-on-one relationship, I'm going to make sure also that you're flourishing in your life. And eventually, I'm going to care about you so much and meet your needs so much, you're going to ask me about Jesus. And eventually, you're going to know Jesus so well, you're going to tell others about him too. That's the mission of those of you in missional business. But that's the mission of everybody. Our church work is supposed to be, we spend most time where? Work. We meet the most people who need to know Jesus where? At work. All right, read this verse, Tom.
Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come. The old has gone. The new is here.